My boyfriend hated glitter. That's why I gave it up. I did it for him. As beautiful as it is, a little glitter on date night can leave a week of evidence. After all, glitter gets everywhere, no matter how careful you are, so I stopped using it. As compromises go, I got off easy. Matt gave up smoking for me. I could give up glitter. My makeup never seemed quite as good without it, but I made do. We've been dating for almost 2 years and lived together. With our 2-year anniversary coming up, I was sure he was going to propose. That's the normal progression of things, isn't it? You date, you move in together, you get married. I didn't have any doubts about our relationship. Things were going well. At least, they were until I found the glitter. By then, I'd been glitter-free for over a year, so I knew I wasn't responsible for the coarse red flakes that littered our apartment. I found it in the bathroom sink, on the couch, and even between our sheets. That's how I knew he was cheating on me. Maybe she was prettier than me. That's why he let her keep the glitter, though he'd complained when I'd worn any. She must have been worth the trouble. That's why he let her leave evidence. He wanted to get caught. After all, glitter gets everywhere. He had to know I'd find it. I saw a single flake catch the light on his knuckle over dinner. I watched, transfixed, as he cut into his sirloin. He was mocking me, wasn't he? He wanted me to say something. His eyes met mine, and he swallowed his bite before he asked, "Is something wrong?" I shook my head. No, it wouldn't be that easy. If I told him I knew, he'd win. It's nothing. He turned his head slightly, eyes still boring into mine. But when I said nothing, he wiped his mouth. The lone piece of glitter transferred to his cheek, catching in the dimple of his smile. I clenched my fists under the table, my plate untouched. "You look beautiful tonight, and dinner tastes great," he continued. "But you're so quiet. You're not eating anything. Do you have something to tell me?" His eyes were bright and expectant. My stomach soured that he'd ask with such blatant enthusiasm. Did he take pleasure in hurting me? His smile dropped away, eyebrows pinching together. I wasn't taking the bait. That must have been frustrating for him. Matt was never one to give up, though. He tried again. "Are you sure nothing's wrong?" "I'm fine." He reached across the table, touching my hand. Touching me with hands that touched her. Whoever she was. I drew my hand away, standing up. I picked up my unfinished plate, turning towards the kitchen. "I'm just tired." I was tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of the evidence he flaunted in my face, daring me to call him out on it. He followed me, lingered in the doorway as I wrapped my leftovers in foil. He didn't say anything. From the corner of my eye, I watched him too. He'd open his mouth, then close it again. Finally, he said, "Joan, if something's wrong, please tell me. I can't do anything to fix it if I don't know what's wrong." "Are you done eating? I want to do the dishes." I walked past him to collect the plate off the table. He didn't stop me, just watched me scrape the last of the meat and vegetables into the trash. "I'm going to give you some space," Matt said, though the silence that came before his words felt far too long. I didn't stop him. That was what he wanted me to do. I listened to his footsteps fade up the stairs. I finished cleanup, stewing in anger. When I peeked into our bedroom, he was asleep without a care in the world. I'd been losing sleep over everything, but there he was. I watched his chest rise and fall with the steady rhythm of a pleasant dream, probably dreaming about her. A woman stepped past me, dressed in sheer bits of thin, white fabric. I stiffened as she took my place in bed, offering a sparkling red smile. She pressed a kiss to Matt's shoulder, leaving behind a glittery smudge. I was too stunned to move, watching her smear her painted lips on his neck next. Matt was still asleep, still dreaming fitfully while the woman confirmed what I'd suspected. The woman was beautiful, of course, practically naked, tall, thin, curvy, and everything I wasn't. The exact kind of woman I feared Matt would leave me for, like she'd been ripped straight out of my worst nightmare. I couldn't compete with someone like that. "What's the matter?" she asked, fluttering her long eyelashes at me as she sat up from the bed. Her lipstick had smeared across her cheek, shining in what little light came in from the hall. "What's wrong?" She rubbed her tongue across her teeth. "I can't do anything to fix it if I don't know what's wrong." I fled, eyes blurry with angry tears. I stumbled down the steps, finding myself back in the kitchen. She followed me, drifting at my heels as she repeated the question. "What's the matter? What's wrong?" "Get away from me!" I didn't mean to scream the words, but she reacted, stepping back, but not completely away. I reached for a knife. I'd like to say I wasn't thinking, but I was. I whipped the blade towards her, opening her throat with the motion. Glitter got everywhere. It was warm, red confetti. It coated the walls and stuck to my hands. There was so much of it, I was covered in it. Matt was going to be annoyed when he saw the mess. After all, glitter gets everywhere. But if there was going to be a mess anyway, I might as well enjoy it. I scooped up generous handfuls as it pooled on the floor, rubbing it into my face and chest. I did like the glamorous look of it. I wasn't sure what to do about the woman. Matt couldn't leave me for her now, but I couldn't leave her corpse in the kitchen. I rolled her up into the area rug and tried to sweep up all the glitter, but that wasn't very effective. The broom just spread the glitter around. Almost none of it ended up in the dustpan. Matt was just going to have to deal. Moving on, I managed to drag the body outside. She was a lot heavier than I expected. Hauling her took a lot of time, breaks, and effort, but when I opened the trunk to stuff her inside, it wasn't empty. Exhausted, panting, and sweaty, I was annoyed. There was a box inside, one I didn't remember. I opened it to find party decorations. Curious, I unfurled the banner tucked neatly inside. Written across it were the words, "Will you marry me?" written neatly with red glitter. I hugged the banner to my chest, sobbing with happiness. Yes, 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 I'll marry you, Matt. I forgive you. I'm sorry the surprise was ruined, but what did you expect, Matt? After all, glitter gets everywhere.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I will be performing for you Perfect Evening by Reddit user BunnyB03. I miss my husband. It's our 15th Valentine's Day as a couple, and he has to work. They say that one of the keys to a great marriage is compromise, so I'm taking it upon myself to improvise. We've sent messages back and forth all day, along with some very private pictures. He gets off in 1 hour. That gives me just enough time to set up for his homecoming. I went out and bought 2 gorgeous ribeyes at the market with some asparagus and hollandaise, his favorite. There's a bottle of wine chilling in the fridge, and my YouTube account is all set up with a romantic, sexy time playlist. My mind reels with adoration when I think of how long we've been together. On the table are freshly chilled, chocolate-covered strawberries, 2 wine glasses, a clean ashtray, and something special to smoke and a lighter. The steaks are resting and warmed, along with the veggies. The dining room is set for the perfect evening. On to the bedroom. I've placed flameless candles all around the room. Hubby hates a hot room, and the bed is made with fresh silken sheets. Now, to get myself ready, I place my clothes on the bed. He likes me in pinks best. I scent them with his favorite perfume. My blood warms at the thought of his touch. On the counter is a lovingly written note that reads, "Your Valentine is waiting for you in the bath. Help yourself to the table, then come on in. I love you." My body is relieved of the weight of my clothes as I start to run the bath. The scented body wash is poured in. I watch the still water start to pop and bubble with excitement. Slowly, I lower myself into the bath, letting the warmth of the water envelop me like a blanket. I start playing music on my phone as I lay my head back and close my eyes. The front doorknob squeaks as it opens. Then I hear it close. Hubby's home. From the living room, I hear the sound of shoes shuffling to the dining room table. I wriggle my frame down further into the water, smiling wickedly. The flick of the lighter sounds, and soon I smell the sweet scent of burned rope. A pop resounds as a wine cork dislodges from its bottle. I wonder if he's gotten my note yet. Then I hear a crashing sound, like something knocking over. I can hear the footsteps walking closer to the bathroom. My joy is like a child on Christmas. Baby, you all right out there? I cleaned all day to make everything nice. You gonna share that? I'm waiting. I sing out to him. There's no response, but he's almost at the door now. Then, suddenly, the music is interrupted by a text message alert. It's from my husband. Hey, honey. I'm sorry. I'm stuck at the office for a little bit longer. I love you. Can't wait to see you.
Edgar Jackson loves the girls, their laughter, their smell, their sweet wavy curls. Edgar doesn't care about eyes or the size of a girl's chest. A beating heart, a pretty smile. That's what Edgar likes best. Edgar Jackson's resolve will not bend. The young man has a Valentine to send. Lacey Hendricks is the girl chosen this year. It arrives on her desk as her heart pounds with fear. He picks her up at about 5:30. He grins, knowing that soon she won't be alive. Disinterest and fear are apparent in her face. Edgar only loves that her existence he'll erase. After dinner, he's charming. She starts to relax, wickedly satisfied. His knuckles he starts to crack. There's a fire in his eyes, but it's not from lust. He yearns to use his weapon, betray her sense of trust. Edgar then clenches his hand into an angry ball. Upon hitting her shoulders, down the stairs she did fall. Lacey awakes confused, tied up and scared. He laughs at her tears. He never cared. Edgar greets her with the tiniest carving knife, slicing her up within a foot of her life. She falls unconscious from pain, sitting there in his den. He lets her rest for a bit, then starts slicing again. Her body is now lifeless, lithe and limp. With the others she'll rest, his newest love imp. Poor Lacey Hendricks, a gruesome fate she had met. But for Edgar Jackson, this truly would be the worst Valentine's Day yet. Little did he know, her vengeful spirit wouldn't be stilled. She would plot with the others. He'd be the next one killed. They stole every breath contained in his lungs, skinning him alive as they celebrated in divine tongues.
I love Jeremy. Valentine's Day has always been my favorite day. Well, except for my wedding day when Jeremy and I married over 8 years ago now. It was a beautiful but small ceremony, attended by family and friends. It was such a beautiful day. The gown I wore shone brightly in the sunlight, and I was the happiest I had ever been in my life. Every day was a blessing, and I did not know how truly lucky I was. Unfortunately, you never know at the time. Blessed is a word I would use to describe myself back then. But ever since Jeremy fell ill, things have changed. I have been the one who organizes everything for us. I cook the Valentine's Day dinner. His favorite, naturally, lasagna. I would set the table, organize our outings. It was all worth it to see the smile on his face. his face would light up. We would eat, and although since he has fallen ill, he doesn't eat much these days. He also doesn't come out to spend time with me like the old days. Instead, I push him around using the wheelchair around the garden. I hate how he can't tell me what he thinks of the flowers and the birds. I know he still loves me. He tells me all the time. It isn't easy being a caretaker for him. It is what you do for love. It doesn't bother me when, at times, he can smell pretty bad, but he can't help it. He has lost so much weight. He's wasted away. I affectionately call him my bag of bones. My family keep telling me that it is time for me to move on from Jeremy. I will never let him go. Jeremy is mine and I am his. Forever. It doesn't matter to me. None of it. The fact he died years ago. I dug him up so we can be together forever. It took a long time and people never understand. I have to keep him hidden in the house. I know they will try to take him from me. I will always keep him by my side. I hold him as I fall asleep every night. We are married and in love. Death changes nothing. Jeremy belongs to me, and I belong to him.
A New Life by Mina. Slowly I opened my eyes. There was nothing but blackness around me. This wasn't shocking. I was used to waking up in my dark bedroom just after sunset. My workday started at 9 p.m. typically and ended at around 6 a.m. Darkness and I were old friends due to this. However, this black seemed darker than I was used to. I moved my arm slightly and hit something beside me. Was I that close to the wall? My other arm moved and hit something as well. Okay, this was not my bed, I thought to myself, with panic rising within me. Curiosity had me try to sit up. I smacked my head on the silk hardness above me, hurting myself in the process. This has to be some kind of box, because it was surrounding me closely. I tried to remember what happened before I went to sleep. I found my thoughts and memories were foggy and mixed up. I didn't remember falling asleep in a box. I had a hard time focusing my thoughts on anything since I was past the point of panic. I had to try to force myself to calm down, but it was very hard given where I thought I was. My thoughts cleared very slowly, with scattered memories trying to form a cohesive train of thought as I tried to calm down. Memories of the last year flowed into my mind slowly and unordered. I didn't work tonight because I quit my job a month ago. I wasn't sure how I had forgotten that. The last thing I could remember was getting married. The last thing I remembered in detail, at least, I had just gotten married. Wait, what happened after the wedding? How did I end up here in this box? I tried to slowly order my thoughts to remember what happened before I apparently fell asleep. At least, I believe I fell asleep. My mind was still not sure. I needed to know what happened. Air would last longer if I calmed myself, so I tried while figuring out how I got here through my scattered thoughts. The ceremony was beautiful. It was everything we dreamed of. It couldn't have been more perfect if we had years to plan. I had met Ryan through work. No, we didn't work together, but we did work for the same company at the time. We spent the first few months alternating between getting to know each other and avoiding each other. We both believed work romances were nothing but trouble. However, there was no escaping the attraction growing in our heart. After 8 months, we stopped fighting it. Our first date was awkward, like all the ones I'd ever been on. To be honest, most of my dates were awkward first dates, which is why there were very few follow-ups. However, Ryan and I made it to a second date, and then a third. 2.5 months after we started dating, he informed me there were some important things we needed to talk about if we were serious about our relationship having a future. His feelings were deep and powerful. I told him mine were as well. He didn't want his past or who he was to change what we had. I was adamant nothing he could tell me would change how I felt. His response was to say, "Remember that after I tell you everything. If you want me to stop at any point, tell me. I will, then I will take you home. First, I will never hurt you or do anything you don't want me to do." When he finished telling me everything about his life, I tilted my head smiling before I moved closer to him. Softly caressing his cheek, I kissed him deeply. It took him a while to believe my feelings hadn't changed. However, I convinced him I wasn't running away from him, but with him. This only made our love stronger. After 2 weeks, he was assured my love for him was real. He asked my parents for my hand in marriage. While we had talked about the possibility, I didn't know he was asking them. It was a surprise that he was able to do this without me knowing. Doing it showed me how deeply he loved me. Ryan had met my family previously. They liked him, and he liked them. Unfortunately, Ryan had no living family of his own. 6 months later, we were being separated by our respected bridal attendants. I had never had a lot of friends, but we each had enough to have the same number of attendants for the wedding. We finalized everything a month before the wedding. It was a suspenseful month waiting for everything we had planned. There was a lot my family and our friends knew nothing of, but Ryan and I believed it was best that way. The hotel hosting the wedding was also hosting our separate parties. We had different rooms for the nights before our wedding. We had booked 2 floors in the hotel for the whole week. Wednesday night was our bachelor and bachelorette parties. We wouldn't see each other until Friday morning when I walked down the aisle. Thursday evening, I made sure everything I didn't need for the wedding was packed in my luggage. It would be moved to the honeymoon suite during the ceremony and reception. I had a horrible time getting to sleep, wondering what he was doing in addition to the excitement and nervousness of the day to come. I couldn't wait to be his wife. We had a whole floor of conference rooms for the ceremony and reception. Ryan spared no cost making sure everything would be perfect for us. After all, he would remind me, this was the only time we were doing this. As my father led me down the aisle, I looked around at my family and friends through the layers of lace hiding my face from view. I knew the significance of the event and the day more than any of them. Before my father handed me over to Ryan, I gave him a tight hug. I took Ryan's hand as we turned to face the minister. The ceremony was perfect and beautiful. All in attendance were touched by the beauty of the service and our vows. When the ceremony ended, we exited the room, entering a waiting room as the guests moved to the reception. We joined them after the photos and family exchanges. As we stood in the reception line to greet all our guests as a married couple, I started to feel faint. Ryan put his arm around me to steady me until we had welcomed our last guests. When I sat down for the luncheon and reception, Ryan made sure I had an extra glass of water as well as some food to level my blood sugar. With his support, I made it through the reception. We said goodnight to our guests before we moved up to the honeymoon suite. Ryan carried me into the room, setting me on a plush chair inside the bedroom near the open fire. He moved around the room, getting the things ready for our trip as I slipped off my shoes. He pulled his jacket off as he came over to kiss me, smiling as the kiss ended. He said, "Soon, my love. Rest now," before he moved to finish the preparations for the morning. We knew it had to appear one way, even though we had different plans from what our family and friends knew of. Once the luggage was set for our plans, he pulled off his tie and shoes coming out of the bathroom. I had drifted off to sleep while he was working. He knelt in front of me to caress my cheek to wake me. I smiled as we teased each other about being newly married. I giggled, telling him that I would need his help to get out of the gown. I'm sure I blushed as he moved my hands to the buttons of his shirt, bidding me to unbutton them. Finally, he helped me up as I helped him take his shirt off. We slowly undressed each other, leading to the normal activities of newly married couples. He was gentle with me, almost like I was his precious princess. He was my prince. No, he was my king. In the wee hours of the morning, we were lying in bed together, feeding each other and sharing drinks. Still holding me in his arms, he caressed my face and neck as he said, "Perhaps you will sleep some as this begins. You've already had a long night. There is much more to come for both of us. You will need rest." I remember telling him I had all the time in the world with him. The last thing I remember was Ryan kissing my eyes closed before kissing my neck again. Had I fainted? Ryan said it would be like going to sleep. I would be extremely ill. It would be painful, excruciatingly painful. Then I would be in a coma. I don't remember pain or sickness. I only remembered his kissing my eyes and against my throat. There was something he whispered. No, did I imagine his words or did he whisper them? I'm not even sure I didn't dream it. Did I even dream? I couldn't remember if I did. I still had questions. Where was I now? What was this? Memories of our plans slowly came back into my mind. They left me still wondering where I was and what I was in. I moved my hands to feel the box around me. No, it wasn't a box. It was a coffin. Yes, it should be a coffin. That was part of the plan. The silk material around me suddenly was comforting, like an elaborate bedding. It was so silent around me. Was this normal? I tried to find out what I was wearing by moving my hands down my body. I was back in my wedding gown. I could feel my feet against the silk. Were they bare? No, they were in stockings with no shoes. The veil was over my face, and my hair was made up like it was for the wedding. I remembered Ryan helping me take all this off. I remembered Ryan and I in bed. I remembered our words to each other. I remembered his kisses. Then there was the whisper. I couldn't decide if it was real or not. I also couldn't tell what it said. I knew it was important. I had to remember. I needed to know what it meant. More and more, I believed it was real. I pushed my hand on the silk padded area over my head. Part of me feared it wouldn't move. The fear of actually being buried grew until it moved slightly. I pushed harder, opening it. I confirmed it was a coffin as I sat up. I was indeed in my wedding gown, as if I was ready to walk down the aisle again. I was in a chapel of some kind. I could see part of it in the dim darkness as my eyes adjusted to the increased light. There were no windows around the chapel. There were no lights on or candles lit. The limited ambient light was all I had to view my surroundings. However, the longer I was awake, the sharper my senses seemed to grow. I could see and hear everything around me. I found my strength was growing in the same way. I leaned to the other end and opened it. With it open, I noticed the coffin was on a solid pedestal. I was going to have some trouble reaching the floor from here if I chose to get out. Looking around, I wondered if this was some strange dream. Am I awake? I could go through the dream and see what happens. Still, it was strange to have a dream of waking in my wedding gown in a coffin. Did it mean our young marriage was doomed? No. Ryan and I would not take omens of doom. We had plans for the future. We would not fail. I just wish I could remember what they were. It took several minutes, but I managed to find my way out of the coffin without hurting myself or disturbing anything. The last thing I wanted or needed was to turn the coffin over on me. Looking around, I noticed there was only one coffin on the platform. The coffin was a very nice one, at least. I would have chosen it for myself if I had to. I stepped backwards, looking at the display. It was set up obviously for my funeral. At least that's what I was starting to believe. Looking down at the pews, I noticed a bulletin on one in front. I walked down the stairs towards them, careful of my gown, to reach the pew. I picked up the bulletin. There was a picture of me in my wedding gown, looking like I didn't have a care in the world. I was so happy. Under the picture was my name, my married name, with my birthday and my death day. My death day was the day after my wedding day. This realization had me sit down on the pew, staring at the bulletin in shock. Could this be real? What did it mean? I woke up in a coffin in my wedding gown after having died on the day after my wedding? I wasn't dead, was I? I didn't feel dead. I checked for a heartbeat and breathing. I was breathing, I thought. My heart, despite beating a little too fast, was beating. Of course, maybe I was just feeling and hearing what I wanted to. I wanted to be alive. I looked down at the bulletin. It was dated 4 days after I died. I started to feel sick at my stomach as I read the bulletin aloud. Everyone thought I was dead. Even Ryan? I knew part of what we had talked about as my memories were slowly coming back. Did something go wrong? Was this normal? Was this part of the process? I wasn't dreaming, but I wasn't sure what had happened. I wasn't supposed to be alone. Ryan was supposed to be here. I tried again to remember what he said, what he had whispered. Why couldn't I remember? I stood from the pew, looking around the chapel. I saw the doors were closed. I presumed they were locked. Regardless, I lifted my skirt and train in my arm as I quickly walked towards the door. They were indeed locked. Panic filled me once more. I wanted to scream, but something told me it would be useless as well. Where was Ryan? I wanted him more now than ever. I felt my empty stomach clench tightly. I made my way around the chapel looking for a way out, but found nothing. I ended up leaning against the platform my coffin was on. I didn't dare sit on the stairs with my gown. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on calming my growing panic. There had to be a reason. We had talked about all of this. I knew we had as my memories finally came, but I couldn't remember it all. Ryan was supposed to be here. The whisper. What had it said? I couldn't remember. What had he whispered? What words had he said? When had he said it? My eyes were closed as a sudden sound came from behind me near the coffin. Opening my eyes, I turned to look back at the coffin. In the dim ambient light of the chapel, I wasn't sure I wanted to see what I was seeing. I watched as a slow, small, creeping shadow grew. It was like a black mist or fog growing slowly from the floor. The dark mist grew into a figure as my mind heard Ryan's words whispered in my ear. Wait for me, love. Be still, and I will be there for you. Just wait and be still. That was what his words were. Calm started to fill me with the remembrance of Ryan's words. I still didn't know what this mist was, but it didn't matter. I knew as it rose from the floor next to my coffin, I would be safe. Ryan would be with me soon. Whatever this was couldn't stand against him. I watched it grow next to my coffin until the black mist was about 6.5 feet tall. I still was holding my gown with my train on my arm. I started stepping backwards from the platform. I watched it as a head formed on the top of the black mist, still stepping backwards. The body of black mist started to solidify. I stopped as I reached the aisle between the pews. I couldn't move. The shadow being, who had risen from the platform floorboards at the head of my coffin, was not yet solid, but was moving towards me. It was still a shadow of mist or fog as it floated across the platform to my side. I wanted to run. I wanted to close my eyes, to wish it away, but I couldn't. When it reached me, I couldn't turn my head to look at it. In my peripheral vision, I saw what I can only describe as a shadow hand moving up to caress my cheek as it solidified into a gloved hand. It continued to caress my face as the rest of the mist solidified. The feeling was strange. I couldn't look at the figure. A familiar voice spoke against my ear. I told you to wait for me. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. I managed to turn my head and look up to focus on his face as I recognized his voice. I knew every inch of that face. I found it hard to believe the shadow being had become the man I loved enough to die for. My voice was trembling as I said, Ryan? Yes, love, he said in answer while his form finished solidifying. I am sorry I was not here when you woke. I was unfortunately delayed. I know you must have many questions. Your memories are still a bit foggy, I know. You will remember more as your mind completely clears. Sadly, it will take about 2 weeks. Unfortunately, there is little time. We have to go. I promise I will answer all your questions when we get home. I turned in his arms and said, Home? Am I not dead? He turned his head and looked at the coffin. The lids I had opened to climb out suddenly snapped shut as he said, To them, he said, moving his arms toward the pew, you are dead. To me, you are not. As he finished, he lifted me into his arms gently, saying, I promise you will understand everything once we are home. For now, trust me, we talked about this. This is the way it must be. It is easier for both of us, especially you. I nodded slowly as I moved my arms around his neck, still having my skirt and train of my gown wrapped around one arm. I couldn't remember the discussion leaving, but he was the only person in the world I completely trusted. Even in the strangeness, with a foggy mind, I trusted him. Suddenly, the chapel dissolved around us. I leaned my head to rest on his shoulders as I closed my eyes tightly. I had a feeling it was better if I kept my eyes closed. His voice was soft as he whispered against my skin, saying, You can open your eyes, love. I opened my eyes to meet the moonlight coming through stained glass windows in a lavish entry foyer before a marble staircase. Ryan was standing in front of the stairs, holding me in his arms still. His words were soft as I looked around us. Welcome home, my love. Now our life together can really begin. No one would ever take you from me, not even death. Ryan? I said, lifting my head to look at him. Is this our home? Yes, Ryan said, grinning at me. No fear can touch us here. We are safe here forever. And here is? He kissed my cheek before he slowly moved around in a circle to let me see the foyer completely as he spoke. In the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, we talked about your dreams of this. Yes, but I never thought that it would be possible. Oh, my love, he said, smiling slightly. So much is possible. So much you don't know of yet because you have forgotten our talks. Just give yourself time. I can tell you so much more now. I'll teach you everything. Trust me. We have all the time in the world to do more and make more memories. I smiled softly, caressing his cheek with my free hand as I said, I trust you. You know I will always trust you. I watched his eyes as I continued, but if I'm not dead, how did we fool my family and our friends? Well, he said, leaning his head to capture my lips in a kiss. He spoke as the kiss ended. You aren't exactly alive anymore, but you aren't dead either. You have no heartbeat, nor do you breathe anymore. Those who we left behind believe you are dead because of that. They only accept my leaving because I was grief-stricken at losing you, and I had to take your body to the family crypt. But I have a heartbeat, and I'm breathing, I said in protest to his statement. I checked when I first woke up. My heart was pounding in panic. No, you only imagined you breathe and heartbeat from your fear. Understand? He said, leveling his gaze on me, his deep voice sounding protective and threatening at the same time as he said, No one will ever hurt you again. I swear you are safe now. Our eyes held each other with a promise from him to me and me to him, which was deeper than the vows we exchanged at our wedding. So why were you late getting to me? My voice said softly after several minutes. There was some discussion about the graveside ceremony, Ryan said softly, moving up the stairs with me still in his arms. I had to explain that you were going to be taken to my family crypt in Romania. There was a bit of an argument about your burial being so far from your family. It had to be Asher, I said, somewhat asking, knowing my cousin had always been argumentative. His argument was probably since we had been married for less than 24 hours, how could Ryan have claim over my body? He nodded with a chuckle. Yes, Asher wanted your body to remain to go into your family's crypt. I told him as my wife you belonged with my family. There was an argument which your father put an end to with an apology for the insult. That is why I was late. I wanted to be there when you woke. I wanted to free you from your coffin. Ryan spun me around the landing of the marble staircase as he said, It doesn't matter now. Nothing is beyond us. We are young and immortal. I blinked as my mind linked his words together. Looking at him, I said, Ryan, are we vampires? Yes, my love, we are.